So how exactly do you get the brand new faster router and dish from SpaceX Starlink? I'm glad you asked. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much once again joining me for tea time. Today we have a little bit of fireside. Coming to the end, guys. I hope you're joining me with your cup of tea, maybe a cup of coffee, hanging out, talking tech, talking photo, talking video. Today is a technology day. We're going to be talking about SpaceX Starlink, but I'm going to answer 3 questions that I've been getting over and over and over as of late. One of the questions is, can I upgrade my Generation 2 router to a Generation 3? And if so, how do I get that router? And another question I've been getting a lot is, if I purchase a brand new SpaceX Starlink kit, will I get the Generation 3 router? And the reason being is a lot of people know that the Generation 3 is a faster router. It is a better router. It is a Wi-Fi 6 router in comparison to a Wi-Fi 5 that we see with the Generation 2. And the last question I've been getting a lot on lives as well as in the comments is, can I buy the brand new dish that SpaceX Starlink just came out with? There's actually 2. So I'm going to answer all 3 of these questions for you today and more. So hang in there. I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible because some people say, can you shorten these videos a little bit? Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. So just hang in there. I tell a lot of people that just have a problem with it, just fast forward, just skip ahead, or try Adderall. That might help you also. Now the question is, can I get one of these brand new dish as of today? And the short answer is no, you can't. But there was a bunch of really good information that came out last night that I want to share with you. First of all, the FCC did approve 2 new units, 2 new Starlink units. I've talked about this months and months ago that SpaceX has been testing out a bunch of different dish to see which ones work the best with their new system, let's call it. Anyways, they came out with 2 new dish. And the first one is a mini. And it is supposed to be a replacement to what we currently have today. But the size of it is odd. It's about the size of an iPad Pro. So it's 11.4 inches by 9.8 inches. Now, if you don't know, that's pretty damn tiny. In comparison to the dish that we have now, which is Mr. Bevel over there, it's around 20.2 by 11.9. The bottom line here is much smaller, 11.5, let's call it, by 10. So it's more square in comparison to rectangular. Now, there is a quote that came out from them, and they said this: it allows customers to enjoy the benefits of high speed and low latency broadband wherever they live or work, including rural and remote areas where mobile or portability applications are necessary. So they're reducing the size, but not reducing the performance. They're actually adding performance to it, which is really amazing how the size is so much smaller. 20 inches and now it's 11. I mean, that is a major reduction in size. You're looking at like 9 inches less wide. And as far as the height, instead of being 12 inches, it's now going to be 10 inches. So it is a much smaller unit. It is, once again, I think, going to be something that you can use fixed or mobile. But that is not talked about as of yet, but I'm sure it will be. Now, the second unit that the FCC just approved is their new high performance unit. Now, you know that there is a business class or a high performance unit that you can buy for like $2,500 or something. And I've told a lot of you guys, don't buy that. It's really not worth it unless you have the extra money and you are paying for the extra service, because they were allowing you to purchase the unit even if you have a standard like residential service package, whereas you're still only guaranteed 100 down anyways. So getting this thing, the only thing it will do is, since it is larger, it might be able to give you a little bit longer before it fades out due to heavy rain. That's really about it. But anyways, this is the replacement to that. And this is going to be also a size difference. Whereas the big unit that's out there now, which is at business class, the high performance version, is 20 inches by 22 inches. So it's more square. whereas this new unit is 22 inches by 14.7 inches. So let's call it 22.5 by 14.5, somewhere around there. So this is becoming more rectangular in the high performance version, whereas in the regular residential version is becoming smaller but more square instead of rectangular. Weird. Very weird. The main takeaway here is yes, the two different dish sizes are going to be available very, very soon. We'll get into that in just a second. They are approved by the FCC. And what SpaceX has said is that these units are going to have, especially when it comes to the high performance one, they're going to have a more enhanced GPS capability, a GPS system built in, as well as they will be able to handle more satellites simultaneously. Let's say they can connect to more satellites, as well as being more stable. And the reason they're going to be more stable, in my personal opinion, is because these dish will have the functionality or the ability to have a greater duty cycle. So instead of having like a 7% duty cycle, you'll have like a 14%, a double, let's say, duty cycle, meaning that they will latch on to the satellites and keep connected for twice the duration before disconnecting and then having to reconnect again and get that handshake. Whenever you have to reconnect, you introduce latency. There is that slight pause, milliseconds, but a slight pause. Now, what SpaceX was quoted in saying was this new generation of user terminals will provide even more benefits to American consumers that only strengthen the public interest in granting SpaceX service requests. What that means to me is they're focusing on Americans and telling the FCC that Americans are going to have a better experience, let's say, with this. And I think a lot of that has to do with is we know that SpaceX Starlink is much faster in Europe and abroad in comparison to the US. The US is definitely slower. If you look at Ookla, all of their ratings as far as download speeds and upload speeds, if you look at the US in comparison to Europe, any part of Europe, doesn't matter where you go, France, Germany, doesn't matter, they are much faster. Sometimes the speeds are double. The reason being is congestion. There is a lot more people in the US using this product. The reason being is in Europe, fiber is everywhere, number one, but number two, 5G is true 5G, and they're getting almost gigabit speeds with 5G, so they really don't need this satellite service. So once again, there's less congestion in Europe. So what they're saying here is, look, the Americans are going to really enjoy this, and they're going to be ordering it at a frantic pace because it's going to be so good. That's what they're telling the FCC, because we know the FCC has looked at SpaceX Starlink and said, listen, you need to keep with these speeds. If not, you are no longer going to be categorized as broadband. It is very important. Now, bear in mind, there is currently an FCC struggle going on between SpaceX Starlink and Dish Network. So I think this is one of the reasons why both these dish that are approved are only fixed approved. So they only have approval to be locked down, stationary in one location. They are not for mobility. And I think that has to do with that battle that's been raging between Dish Network and SpaceX Starlink for a while now. So we'll see what ends up happening with this. But I do think that these dish, especially the larger one, is all ready for mobility. They're going to have that enhanced GPS built into and all the rest of the stuff. So it is ready to go. That thing can be slapped onto the top of a car or a plane or any type of train or boat or moving vehicle of any sort, I believe. Don't quote me. Yeah, quote me. I think I'm right. Anyways, so the main question here is how long will it take before you are going to be able to get one of these new dish? Well, if we look at the past as a reference, as a guide, well, we know that when the FCC did approve, this was back, I think it was July, they approved the version 3 or the generation 3 routers. When they made that approval go through, SpaceX Starlink was shipping those routers out within a week. So that being said, seeing that the FCC has approved these two new dish, chances are within a very short period of time, they will be out in the wild. So stay tuned for that. Now, the last two questions that I keep on getting, I'm just going to answer them together because they're kind of associated with one another. Number one is, can you get a Generation 3 router? Can you purchase one if you are a Generation 2 user? That's number one. And number two, if you do purchase a brand new Starlink kit today, will you get a Generation 3 router? And the answer to both of those questions is no. Now, you're going to be like, well, why is that? We know the Generation 3 is a better router. It's a faster router. It is a Wi-Fi 6 router instead of a Wi-Fi 5 router. It can handle more simultaneous Wi-Fi connections, and it's faster and all the rest of the stuff, right? We know all that. But what you need to understand is the Generation 3 router is only an upgrade to the Generation 1. It is not an upgrade for the Generation 2. Why is that? Well, the Generation 1, if you remember, the Generation 1 had a PoE injector connected to it. So the way that it would work is it would use standard Cat5, Cat6 cables, and the data would go out of the router into a PoE injector. It's a little box that looks like this that adds power. PoE stands for Power over Ethernet. So it would send the data and the power to Dishy, or my Mr. Bevel, and that's how it would get the power. Whereas the new Generation 2 does not do that. That PoE injector, let's say, is built into the router. It is not a separate device. And that router requires proprietary cables, whereas the Generation 1 doesn't. Also, the Generation 1 has a reset button on the bottom. Also, the Generation 1 does have an Ethernet port on the back, whereas the Generation 2 doesn't. So the Generation 1, even though it was old school, it's kind of better, all right? It kind of is. I love the idea of being able to use standard cables, standard Cat5, Cat6 cables, Cat7, Cat8 cables in comparison to proprietary cables. And I don't mind having a PoE injector outside of the unit. It's not a bad thing. It really isn't. Whereas the new Generation 3 has all of that Generation 1. All right? So that's why you cannot use it with a Generation 2. The Generation 3 has a PoE or uses the PoE injector that the Generation 1 has. You see what I'm saying? So it is a different unit completely. The upgrade for a Generation 2 will most likely be a Generation 4. That we're going to have to wait for. I want that to happen soon because then maybe we'll see Wi-Fi 6 or Wi-Fi 6E or Wi-Fi 7 or something that is more advanced than the current Wi-Fi 5 that we have in this unit, in the version 2 or the Generation 2 unit. So in the end, this is all great news, even though this is not going to affect us today, but in the near future, we're going to see enhancements. Number one, the terminals are becoming smaller. Also, the terminals are becoming more powerful. They're going to be able to do more. They're going to be able to connect to more satellites simultaneously, even though they are more condensed, they are smaller. Also, they are going to have a greater duty cycle, meaning that they're going to have a longer period of time that they are connected to the satellites. So we won't go down. There won't be as many outages, let's say. And hopefully, they can deal with this rain fade a little bit better. Now, I don't know how they're going to be able to do it by making the dish smaller. Usually, to deal with rain fade, you need a dish that's bigger. But by increasing the duty cycle, maybe adding a little bit more power to it within their specs, their safe zone, let's say, maybe that will be able to cut through the rain a little bit better. I'm hoping that is the case. So my question to you is, if this new dish, either one of them, the big maxi, let's call it, the big high performance dish, or the small little mini is available to you within the next week or two, will you purchase it? Down below in the comments, I want to know from you. Anyways, guys, I hope you've gotten something out of this video. If you have, throw it a thumbs up. That'll be very helpful. If you haven't subscribed yet, consider doing so. If you are subscribed, click this little button over here so when I go live or when a new video comes out, you'll be notified of it immediately. If you want more Starlink content, I'll put a link over here to about 180, 190 Starlink specific videos. Helpful how-tos, tips, tricks, what to buy, what not to buy, why. As I always say, this channel is all about the why. And if you just want to say thank you for all of my hard work, there's a little thank you button right down here. You can give $1 or $2 if you'd like. If not, that's fine too. Consider becoming a member of the channel. That would be even better. And if you haven't downloaded any of my ebooks as of yet, go pick them up. They are 100% free. Go to JCristina.com/books. Once again, JCristina.com/books. And if you're looking for a VPN, or if you need port forwarding or a static IP address, consider checking out PureVPN. Those guys are awesome over there. They gave me a promo code, which is JCristina. If you use that, you will get 15 additional % off their already great price. I think there's about 50 or 60% off that's going on right now. Go check that out. Go over to JCristina.com/VPN. Once again, JCristina.com/VPN. And finally, head over to my website, JCristina.com, where you can find all the photography tools I've invented for you and me over the years, and hopefully there's something there that you might like. And if there is, please pick it up and support me and my family. That's it, guys. I'm out of here for the end of the vlog. Many blessings to you and your family. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you in the next one. Love you all.